This is Jim Fetzer, your host on Authentic News right here on RBN Live, this 25th day of April 2025. I don't mind hearing it again. That's one of the greatest guitar riffs of all time. We're in for it. Mark my words. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. Here we have Hal Turner reporting. Biggest indicator of war in Middle East coming now. It's sending planes that are used for advanced control of enemy targets. These aircraft indicate a battle sequence is laid in and ready. They use these planes to direct foes for our military as we go into battle. It's worth noting Russia has enacted and President Putin has signed a strategic agreement with Iran. It's valid and in full force, effective as of yesterday. It's also worth noting both Russia and China have spoken publicly about Iran, telling the world they will not sit back and allow their BRICS member and ally Iran to be attacked and destroyed. That's just the beginning. Then you got Marco Rubio, our idiot Secretary of State, declaring Iran must stop nuclear enrichment. Unbelievable that Iran cannot enrich uranium under any deal with the U.S., an idea Tehran has said is unacceptable. It's frankly absurd. Rubio said Iran could maintain a civilian nuclear program, but would have to import enriched uranium for its use as fuel. If Iran wants a civil nuclear program, they can have one just like many other countries in the world, in that they import enriched material. Last week, the Iranian foreign minister said Iran's right to enrich uranium was non-negotiable. In response to Rubio's, I add, idiotic comments, a senior Iranian official told Reuters zero enrichment is unacceptable. Where did they come up with this rubbish? But here you have it. More damning than anything else he's ever done. Trump announced the deployment of U.S. forces to Middle East without congressional approval. Trump campaigned on ending endless wars, but now commits U.S. forces to large-scale operations in Yemen. According to an announcement posted on the White House webpage, Trump has formally notified Congress he has deployed additional combat-equipped forces to the Middle East and launched large-scale military strikes in Yemen, targeting Houthi militants. He's not going to be successful. This guy's incapable of learning from experience. I'm convinced the guy is a dullard. In a letter sent to both House Speaker Johnson and President Pro Tem of the Senate Grassley, Trump described the Houthis as a band of pirates who have attacked U.S. forces and commercial vessels in the Red Sea. That's ludicrous. That's ridiculous. This is shabby. This is nonsense. This is Donald Trump throwing away the reputation of the United States. We've already looked like fools and buffoons on the world stage because of his actions. This is worse. And now, get it, Senator Fetterman calls for Trump to bomb Iran. I mean, it really is the case the inmates are running the asylum. Senator John Fetterman called for the Trump admin to negotiate with Iran and bomb Iranian nuclear facilities. The man has no idea what he's talking about, no understanding of history, no appreciation for Iran, no grasp that even our own intelligence community conclude that Iran has no nukes and isn't trying to develop nukes. So what the hell is wrong with Fetterman? Waste that shit, Fetterman told the Washington Free Press in an interview published Wednesday. You're never going to be able to negotiate with that kind of regime that had been destabilizing the region for decades already. And now they have an incredible window, I believe, to do that, to strike and destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. Not so fast. You may think you can do it. Iran is prepared for these strikes. This is ludicrous. So now we have Trump, turning Gaza into Trump's war. Now we have Trump turning Yemen into Trump's war. We got Fetterman telling him to attack Iran, which would be a third Trump war. And of course, he's at a loss about what to do with Ukraine, where I thought this was all going to be settled forthwith. Remember, the guy campaigned on ending these stupid wars. Well, what was stupid is our believing that he was speaking the truth, that he was sincere. The man's a hypocrite, a liar, a phony, a fraud. I am repulsed. Get this now. NATO chief to lobby Trump to not pressure Ukraine to make peace with Russia. Think about it. The head of the North Atlantic Alliance is traveling to U.S. for meeting with top officials in the Trump admin. Secretary General Mark Rutte is expected to push the White House not to force Ukraine into a peace deal with Russia. What do they want? They've already lost 1 million Ukrainians. You want it to be 2 million? I mean, this is incredibly stupid. They have lost. This guy is incompetent or has illegitimate motives. I think there's no doubt he may be a combination of both. According to the Financial Times, Rutte urged President Trump's admin not to force Ukraine to accept a peace deal against its will. That's what happens in war. You have to make concessions against your will. They lost. Russia won. Get over it. During meeting with the embattled Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Mario Rubio, and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, where Waltz was a guy who put that Israeli IDF officer in charge of the Israel-Iran desk in the National Security Council. I mean, these people are traitors. And I'm having an impossible time denying that so is the President of the United States. He's violating his oath of office. He's violating the Constitution, not just on matters like free speech, which I regard as horrendous and an impeachable offense, but now he's violating the rules for deployment of U.S. troops. He's starting a new war without congressional approval, and he's doing it under the fabricated pretext of calling them pirates. Damn you, Donald Trump. You are lower than dirt. This is completely disgusting. The Houthis are an heroic force. They're magnificent fighters. And if you think sending U.S. troops into Yemen is going to lead to the Houthis' defeat, he is sending lambs to the slaughter. The Houthis will kill every one of them. Every one of them. Mark my words. This man is unfit to be commander-in-chief. Totally unfit to be president of the United States. Congress, get a grip. Impeach this man. Kremlin says peace possible if Ukraine withdraws from Russian-claimed territory. Antiwar.com. The Financial Times reported Tuesday Russian President Putin was willing to freeze the current battle line for a peace deal, which would mark a significant concession from Moscow. What he wants is the 4 oblasts in Crimea, and I don't think much more. But, of course, he also wants no NATO for Ukraine ever, ever, ever. He wants a demilitarization of Ukraine and the denazification, which is going to be the hardest part. Meanwhile, Trump slams Zelensky for delaying a peace negotiation with Russia. That's why the NATO guy is coming over. Trump Wednesday slammed Ukrainian President Zelensky for rejecting the idea of Ukraine recognizing Crimea as Russian, saying the comment is hurting the peace process. This statement is very harmful to peace negotiations with Russia, and that Crimea was lost years ago under the auspices of President Barack Hussein Obama, is not even a point of discussion. Nobody is asking Zelensky to recognize Crimea as Russian territory, but if he wants Crimea, why didn't they fight for it 11 years ago when it was handed over to Russia without a shot being fired? The area also houses, for many years before the Obama handover, major Russian submarine bases. He said inflammatory statements like Zelensky were prolonging the war. He has nothing to boast about. The situation for Ukraine is dire. He can have peace, or he can fight for another 3 years before losing his whole country. Trump's got it right. Meanwhile, the Kremlin is happy and celebrating. There were massive attacks in the vicinity of Kiev. I think Russia is, laying on
massive missile and drone strike on Ukrainian aviation, rocket and space, machine building, and armored vehicle industries. This is the most intense Russian missile attack this year. Explosions thundered in Kiev, Kharkov, Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk, Sumy, Cherkasy, Poltava, Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, Khmelnytsky, Zhytomyr, and in the Kiev-controlled part of Zaporizhia region. Look, Garand drones hit the site of preparation for the launch of Ukrainian long-range drones and the drone warehouse of the 65th Brigade of the Ukrainian Army. In Kiev, at least 5 caliber missiles reached their targets. According to preliminary data, the Artem machine building plant, railway infrastructure, and the locations of Western air defense systems were hit in the Ukrainian capital. In Kharkov, missiles hit a transport engineering plant, which is used as a repair base for Ukrainian armored vehicles. Near Zhytomyr, the target was the area of the Ozernoye military airfield. In Pavlograd, there were attacks on a chemical plant and other industrial facilities. The debilitating strikes of Garand drones have bled dry the Ukrainian anti-missile system, which is unable to withstand constant massive raids. See our article for details.
Wow. Thus, what does he do? Trump tells Putin to stop attacking Kiev. I mean, this is ridiculous. Trump Thursday urged Russian President Putin to stop following major Russian strikes on the Ukrainian capital, which local officials said killed at least 12. I'm not happy with the Russian strikes on Kiev. Not necessary, very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. Well, those are 4,500 Ukrainians and 500 Russian. According to the AP, the strikes were the heaviest in July. At least 5 neighborhoods in the capital city were hit. Multiple residential buildings were heavily damaged. On top of the 12 killed, at least 90 were wounded. Well, it's called war. But for Trump to be telling the leader of one side to stop because he's hurting the other is just absurd beyond belief. Meanwhile, it turns out UK intel was behind Ukraine's disastrous Crimea invasion, leaked documents reveal. Here we have leaked documents revealed by the Gray Zone reveal a blueprint for Ukraine's failed effort to capture the village of Kryniki was assembled by Project Alchemy, a secret military intel cell created by the British military defense, which sought at all costs to keep Ukraine fighting. The Kryniki plot led to a bloodbath that remains one of the war's biggest disasters. Thank the UK. Well, get this. Russia now has a combat icebreaker. They're anticipating we're going to have conflicts over the Arctic. As U.S. looks for new ways to expand its small icebreaker fleet on a short timetable, Russia began testing its first combat icebreaker, a rare gray hull vessel, purpose-built for Arctic service. The newly delivered Ivan Papanin is the first of two Project 23550 conventional icebreaker delivered by the United Shipbuilding Corporation for the Russian Navy's Northern Fleet. It launched in 2019, began sea trials last year, and is now completed ice testing in the Arctic. As a lightly armed patrol vessel, Papanin carries one 76mm cannon, several crew-served weapons. It also has provision to optical containerized launchers for 8-caliber anti-ship cruise missiles not seen during recent testing. These would be mounted on the fantail based on illustration from the shipbuilder, where other containerized payloads could be substituted as well. In other words, Russians aren't missing a trick. Meanwhile, get this, neither are the Israelis when it comes to killing Palestinians. Israel is using suicide drones to target displaced Palestinian families sheltering in tents. Yeah, now they're going after innocent Palestinian families in tents. Those are a real threat to Israel, aren't they? Here we have a report. Israeli military is using so-called suicide drones, highly precise attack drones, in strikes on displaced camps in Gaza that have killed at least 30 Palestinians, including 14 children, according to photos, videos, and eyewitness testimony obtained by Drop Site News. Of course, any way they can kill a Palestinian. The only good Palestinian is a dead Palestinian. Here we have another report from antiwar.com. Israeli attacks killed 38 Palestinians in Gaza over 24 hours. Gaza's health ministry said Wednesday Israeli attack killed at least 38 Palestinians, wounded 105 over the past 24-hour period, as U.S.-backed Israeli strikes pound targets across the Strip. This is enough to make you a wretch. The whole world's looking on and just appalled by this American-supported genocide. We are going to get our just desserts, mind you. There may be those who think it's just super to slaughter innocent men, women, and children. That is not how the world sees it. Meanwhile, killing of Gaza aid workers. IDF troop fired indiscriminately for over 3 minutes, some at point-blank range. They knew exactly what they were doing. It's been archived. I can't get to the video. Not surprising. Very, very nasty. Meanwhile, get this. U.S. has launched 750 airstrikes on Yemen since March 15th. 750. A U.S. official told ABC, U.S. launched around 750 strikes on Yemen since March 15th, a relentless bombing campaign that has failed to deter the Houthis and has taken a heavy toll on civilians. That's our new area of specialization, U.S., killing civilians. U.S. airstrikes hit multiple provinces in Yemen Thursday, at least 3 wounded by attacks that hit the capital, Sana'a, and the northern Sana'a province, Sada province. U.S. airstrike Thursday reported in the provinces of Marib, Sana'a, and Amran. The Houthis are known for their resilience, having survived a U.S.-backed Saudi United Arab Emirates war from 2015 to 22, which involved heavy airstrikes, a ground campaign, and a blockade. The Yemeni group was not deterred by a U.S. bombing campaign conducted by ISIS.
Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where a wedding has been. Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? All of them.
Get more tank will save you money.
And all the lonely people. Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where a wedding has been. Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? All the lonely people. Where do they all come from? All the lonely people. Where do they all belong?
Meanwhile, Trump is poised to offer Saudi Arabia over $100 billion arms package. We got Americans starving in the street. We got people who can't find work. We're giving all our money to these illegals or to foreign nations to fight wars for Israel. Remember now, these Saudis are really crypto Jews. They have made reconciliation with Israel. I think this would be to benefit Israel. So, of course, Trump is going to support it. The U.S. is poised to offer Israel, Saudi Arabia, an arm package worth well over $100 billion. 6 sources with direct knowledge told Reuters, saying a proposal is being lined up for announcement during Trump's visit to the kingdom in May. The offered package comes after the admin of former President Biden unsuccessfully tried to finalize a defense pact with Riyadh as part of a broad deal that envisioned Saudi Arabia normalizing ties with Israel. Meanwhile, the Navy had to cancel a 56-year-old International Sea Power Symposium due to the unavailability of funding. We can't finance this. We can give $100 billion to Saudi Arabia, but we can't finance a symposium. The Navy is canceling its biennial International Sea Power Symposium due to unavailable funding. The service confirmed to USNI News Thursday. The Chief of Naval Operations has hosted heads of 9 of more than 100 navies every other year at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island for the 3-day-long symposium since 1969. Following the conference, the Naval War College has published its proceedings. No longer. We can't afford it. Why? Because we've given all our money to Ukraine and to Israel, and now we're going to give it to Saudi Arabia. To hell with that. Meanwhile, Yale, pro-Palestinian group stripped of status after protesters pitched tents to oppose appearance by Israeli security minister. I'm all with the protesters. New Haven. Yale stripped one of the groups that organized a pro-Palestinian protest of its status as an official student organization. The school and organizer said Wednesday, that is deplorable. The protest was related to Wednesday's planned off-campus appearance by Israeli Minister of National Security, Ben-Gvir, who's a lunatic. Yale claimed the group violated university rules, the group said. Oh, yeah, sure. The rule what? Don't do something Yale doesn't like politically? Outrageous. Yale's leadership has focused on selectively repressing student speech. Despite admitting to campus press that a protest against Ben-Gvir on Tuesday night was not affiliated with any recognized student organization, university officials stripped Yale's for Palestine, Yale's chapter of the National Organization Students for Justice in Palestine, of its status as an official student organization at 3 p.m. today. Disgusting. Disgusting. What else should we expect from Yale? Meanwhile, Watchdog faults Israel for indiscriminate attacks on Lebanese civilians, right? Count on the Israelis are equal opportunity murderers. They'll kill you if you're in Syria. They'll kill you if you're in Lebanon. They'll kill you if you're in Jordan. They'll kill you if you're in Gaza. They'll kill you if you're in the West Bank. Lunatics. Israel's continued airstrikes at Lebanon are fueling growing criticism internationally, particularly as a substantial number of civilians are being swept up in the strikes, and few obvious justifications are ever offered for the drone strikes in populated areas. International watchdog Human Rights Watch is the latest to speak up on the matter, saying there's growing evidence of violations of international law and indiscriminate attacks on civilian targets in Lebanon. Yes, of course. Meanwhile, U.S. war games simulate full-scale battle with China in the Philippines. The U.S. kicked off its largest annual military drills alongside the Philippines Monday, simulating a full-on war with China. Well, if that sounds bad, how about this? India and Pakistan, close to all-out war after terror attack. Remember now, India is a nuclear-armed nation. Pakistan is a nuclear-armed nation. So they're virtually at war after terror attacks. What do you think that's pressing? How's that going to play out?
Truth. You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network. Real news, real talk, real people. Because you can handle the truth.
What would you say?
Well, we got a lot going on at the Pentagon, and none of it's good. Here we have Pete Hegseth, former staffer and close ally, reveals a full-blown meltdown inside the Pentagon. A former Pentagon spokesman and close ally, Pete Hegseth, has aired out dirty laundry about a full-blown meltdown that his old boss should be terminated for. John Illiot announced his resignation on Wednesday, claiming his time there was never meant to be permanent. He was only doing a favor to Hegseth. He had a tumultuous tenure, and including defending the temporary deletion of a government website of baseball hero Jackie Robinson's military service as an anti-DEI move before 3 staffers were fired after an internal investigation. Writing an op-ed for Politico on Sunday, Illiot knifed his old boss and exposed the chaos currently unfolding inside the Pentagon before sharing his belief that Donald Trump should fire Hegseth himself. He said he was a longtime backer of the secretary and valued his friendship, even wrote a separate op-ed saying he was the man to reform the DOD when his nomination was in trouble. However, Illiot called his last month at the Pentagon a full-blown meltdown that has devolved into total chaos, saying that the dysfunction is now a major distraction for the president, who deserved better from his senior leadership. It's hard to see Defense Secretary Hegseth remaining in his role for much longer. He went on to criticize Hegseth directly over the Signal Group chat leak. There's some photographs here. He called his attempts to debunk the Atlantic Jeffrey Goldberg's reporting Clinton-esque and followed horrible crisis communication advice from Illiot's replacement, led by Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell. Hegseth, Illiot claims, only made things worse by forcing Goldberg's hand to release further details of the chat, leading to a multi-week embarrassment for the Pentagon. Yeah, they can't even be secure about their own conversations. Here's more. Could a blobby enclave be sowing chaos at the DOD? In remarks to Tucker Carlson, Dan Caldwell suggested established interests on Defense Policy Board are behind Pentagon turmoil. The Defense Policy Board website has been scrubbed, as reported by The Intercept. The list of DPB members can still be viewed on an archived version. Discussing alleged Pentagon leaks with Tucker Carlson on Monday, recently ousted DOD official and Iraq War veteran Dan Caldwell charged there are a number of career staff at the Pentagon who oppose the current admin policies. He then took particular aim at the Defense Policy Board as a potential source of ongoing leaks to the press. Caldwell claimed most of the DOD leaks were probably coming from career staff hostile to the secretary, to the president, vice president worldview. But he also told Carlson that there's a less obvious place the leak could come from, the Defense Policy Board, which advises the Secretary of Defense on matters related to defense policy. There's no evidence to his claim about the leaks, nor has there been any insight into the investigations reportedly embroiling Caldwell and two others who are pushed out of the Pentagon. But I tell you, from what I've been hearing, the guy's probably more right than wrong. Meanwhile, Peg Hegseth really was a dubious choice from the beginning. He did study politics at Princeton. He published a Princeton Tory, a conservative student newspaper. In 2003, commissioned as an infantry officer in the Minnesota Army National Guard, served at Guantanamo, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, worked for several organizations after leaving Iraq, including as executive director of Vets for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America. He became a contributor for Fox News in 2014, served as an advisor to Trump after initially supporting his campaign in 2016. From 2017 to 24, he was co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend. He's written several books, including American Crusade 2020 and The War on Warriors 2024. I gotta say, though, he appears to me to be an intellectual lightweight and really not qualified for his position. Here we have a new poll confirming the Democrats' worst fears, but I gotta tell you, these polls are behind the curve. Last night, my wife, who's addicted to MSNBC, was watching Rachel, and she was going through poll after poll after poll, and they appear to be genuine. How support for Trump is dropping like a stone, and I believe it. If I, after all my years of enthusiastic support for Donald Trump, has come to recommend that he be impeached and removed from office, you know something is terribly, terribly wrong. So here's this report from Zero Hedge. I'm guaranteeing you, this is behind the curve. Can you believe it? The Democrats, once the supposed champions of the working class, have exposed themselves as nothing more than elite snobs who couldn't care less about real Americans. Recent polling has confirmed what conservatives have known all along. The Democratic Party is now the domain of overeducated, snobby, wealthy liberals who look down on everyone who doesn't share their enlightened worldview. The emphasis in we have a seismic shift in party affiliation. This I'll grant when Trump looked so good. The electorate in 2024 was 6% less Democratic than 4 years ago. It was historically significant. More importantly, I can't remember the last time people who voted on Election Day, the majority or plurality were Democrats. It shows a real erosion for the Democrat Party. Many who backed Biden in 2020 simply didn't show up this time around. Well, there's more to it, but I'm telling you, that's really the top, the zenith for Trump. It's all going to be downhill from here. Meanwhile, WorldNet Daily reports Democrats go potty mouth to try to win back voters they have lost. The Democrat Party has decided apparently that going potty mouth, cursing, swearing, being crude and vulgar is an excellent strategy to win back voters they've lost. Even leftist publications are noting the development. Shit-talking is Democrats' new strategy, charged CNN, and PBS noted in its for its far-left agenda stated, what the SHI Democrats are swearing more. Here's why. The Washington Examiner cited Adam Schiff, who's despicable, who long has claimed wildly that he saw evidence of Trump campaign collusion with Russia in 2016, when investigation had confirmed it did not exist, as among those who have let their language turn dirty. I'm a good Democrat, so my view, of course, is when they go low, we go high. He can go F himself, Schiff said on a television show. Yeah, that's going to win a lot of supporters, unfortunately. Trump's worst enemy is Trump himself. Meanwhile, real ID, phony security, real authoritarianism. Ron Paul, we may have read parts of this before, but it's worthwhile. Passed in 2005, the Real ID Act created federal standards for driver's licenses. The law requires everyone applying to provide the DMV with social security number, proof of legal residence, 2 proofs of home address. The Real ID Act allows the Homeland Security to mandate as it sees fit, including of additional items in the related government database, including biometric identifiers, personal data, retinal scan, fingerprints, and DNA. Well, he may be right about that. I have one of these federal IDs. I don't see it as a major threat, but I appreciate Ron Paul. Meanwhile, listen to this exclusive. Trump executive order will bar decertifying colleges over DEI. President Trump will sign an executive order Wednesday prohibiting higher education accreditors from participating in unlawful diversity, equity, and inclusion discrimination. 5 sources familiar with the directive told the Daily Signal. Ensuring that accreditors don't require colleges and universities to require unlawful discrimination, such as DEI policies, could protect conservative colleges like Hillsdale and Grove City, which don't record student races or abide by racial admission quotas. The Wednesday order will ensure accreditors comply with federal anti-discrimination law, like Trump's January 20th executive order prohibiting DEI practices in federal funded education. It's also created accreditation processes that reduce barriers to streamline programs, instruct accreditors to give more deference to state law, and target credential inflation, the devaluation of educational or academic credentials over time, a senior administrator confirmed to the Daily Signal. I think that's all fine. But maybe, listen to this.
Today about the controversy over diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to compare it with affirmative action. Affirmative action was created during the civil rights era, 1964 and 65, and then now it has been with us almost 60 years. And it's said that African Americans had not been given equality of opportunity. And it was often challenged by not just so-called whites, but Asians as well. And then something happened to this paradigm. When the Obama administration came in,
Victor Davis Hanson, very wise man.
Hello, this is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. I want to talk today about the controversy over diversity, equity, and inclusion, but in a little different strain. I want to compare it with affirmative action. Affirmative action was created during the civil rights era, 1964 and 65. And then now it has been with us almost 60 years. But remember what it was originally designed for, to address the historic racism and oppression of Black Americans through slavery and Jim Crow, de facto segregation in some of the northern states, but de jure segregation in the South. And it said that because of that, African Americans had not been given equality of opportunity. Statute never said anything about quotas or quality result. That's something that came in later. But the point I'm making, affirmative action was envisioned for this historic minority that made about 12% of the population. It was challenged in the courts for years, and it was often challenged by not just so-called whites, but Asians as well, because their SAT scores, to take the example of college admissions, or their GPAs were often 200 or 300 points in the case of the SAT, and GPA 4 versus 3.2 in the case of GPAs. By that, I mean African Americans were being admitted with less impressive statistics than whites, but especially Asians. And then something happened to this paradigm. When the Obama administration came in, they saw that that constituency was not big enough for the type of woke agenda that they were envisioning. So they recreated it. They used a word diversity. And diversity then would morph in during the Obama years to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They added the equity and inclusion so you didn't obsess on race, which was the obsession, but they didn't want you to think about that. So then all of a sudden, anybody was diverse on one qualification. They were not white. That posed millions of problems, because who is white in a multiracial society? Everybody has different heritages. Is it 1/4, 1/16? Should we use the one-drop rule of the old Confederacy? How do we stop fakers like Senator Elizabeth Warren, et cetera? But all that aside, you can see what Obama was trying to do. He was trying to say that the number of people who had been victimized was no longer 12%, it was 30%. And it was based on the idea of systemic racism. If you could not find overt racism in the 21st century, then you had to put adjectives in it. It was systemic. It was institutional. It was insidious. It was like air. You can't see air, but you know it's there. So you had to have air detectors, like DEI detectors. And they would tell us you have to have trigger warnings or safe spaces or microaggressions. This was all an effort to build a victimized class. And what happened was, in the old days, there was an economic element to affirmative action. It was clear that African Americans' income was not comparable to non-African Americans. But under DEI, you could be an immigrant from the Punjab. You could come in from Argentina. You could come in from Taiwan. You could come in from almost any area. And there were actually 16 different ethnic groups with higher incomes than whites. So what happened? People began to say two things. This person who we are hiring because we want to be diverse actually has more money than the people who are being excluded and has more opportunity, number one. And number two, they have no history of systemic exclusion. How does somebody who comes across the border from Oaxaca on the first day claim that he's been a victim of insidious American racism? How does somebody who comes from Taiwan make the argument that he has been a victim of systemic racism in the here and now? So you had all of these immigrants coming in, and remember, DEI was by intent to coincide with a record number of immigrants, 55 million, 16% of the population. So what did we do? We created a new group, and the result of it was
just do what it please.
Barnard is a women's college for Columbia, where most professors at Barnard received text messages Monday notifying them a federal agency was reviewing the college's employment practices. The messages set the most Barnard professors' personal cell phones, asked them to complete a voluntary survey. Select all that apply. I am Jewish. I am Israeli. I have shared Jewish-Israeli history. I practice Judaism and other. Additional questions asked respondents whether they've been subjected to anti-Semitism, whether they were subject to unwelcome discussion, graffiti, or signs depicting anti-Semitic messages or images, anti-Semitic or anti-Israeli protests, welcome comments, jokes, unwelcome comments, jokes, or discussion, or pressure to abandon, change, or adopt a practice or religious belief. The federal government reaching out to our personal cell phone to identify who is Jewish is incredibly sinister, said Barnard Associate Professor Debbie Betcher, who is Jewish herself and received the text. They are clearly targeting what most of the United States, I hope and I think, defines as freedom of speech, but only in the case of anti-Israeli speech. Yes, that's exactly what's going on. Meanwhile, in Germany, the inveterate Holocaust denier, Ursula Haberbeck, was repeatedly convicted for denying the facts of the Holocaust. Of course, she was right because they aren't facts at all, has died. She was still appealing a recent conviction for incitement to hatred at the time of her death at 96. And if you want to learn more, I've given you links here to the Holocaust Narrative, Politics, Trump, Science, which is a relatively short piece in the government rag, where I explain that you can define the Holocaust narrative in terms of three theses, namely that 6 million, that Hitler was attempting to exterminate the Jews and succeeded by putting around 6 million to death, that many of those deaths were brought about by the use of cyanide gas in chambers for that purpose, and that the chemical agent that brought about those deaths was Zyklon B, to which the victims were subjected. The science of the Holocaust does not leave any room for doubt about the second and third of these claims. The laws of biochemistry and of material science, which cannot be violated and cannot be changed, entail that the bodies of those put to death using cyanide turn pink, while the walls of chambers used for that purpose would turn blue. But none of the bodies from those camps has been reported to have been pink. An empirical examination of the gas chambers has determined that, unlike the walls of the 10,000 chambers, none of them turned blue.